I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Here.
DePena?
Here.
Graziano?
Here.
Nattari?
Here.
Rovell?
Here.
Strumelob Burke? Here. Mayor Melham?
Here. Sunshine House?
Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was published in the December 18th issue of the Star Ledger and the December 20th issue of the Belleville Times. A copy of this notice has been posted on the Belleville Town Hall Bulletin Board, and a copy is on file in the Municipal Clerk's office.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item we have is item 4. It was executive session to discuss a financial agreement. I am told from the manager it's no longer necessary.
No executive session necessary. It's an introduction. Certainly we'll have additional dialogue.
Sounds good to me. Next up, we have the approval of minutes.
Combined conference and regular meeting of September 10th.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion made, second. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Abstain.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelob Burke? Yes. Mayor Melham?
Yes. Report of the manager.
Report of the manager. My report is going to be very brief because we're going to obviously be prepared and ready for questions as it pertains to the budget. I'll just give us a quick executive summary of what the budget is looking like as far as final adoption. And then again, at the public hearing, we'll be able to answer any questions that may arise. But our 2019 budget is $71 million. I'm just going to round off some numbers if it's okay, just for the executive summary part. Last year was $65 million, so we went up by $6 million. So at first, on the first glance, is why do we go up $6 million? Certainly, I want to just give you some highlights. Also understand that in 2018, the average home in Belleville was assessed at $236. This year, we're at $276. So again, that's an indication of a community where the recent sales have impacted the assessment, evaluation. So again, we're up by $40,000 on the average assessment. This year's budget calls for an increase of $132 per the average home that's assessed at $276,000. And some of the bigger ticket items that we had, in most cases we have no choice. We just have to more or less accept them. Our pension increase from the previous year, $769,000. Insurance costs in general, whether it's health, liability, and all, roughly $1 million. We had $565,000 of insurance settlements, and again, you can't budget something like that. Just came in. Our salary and wage with our contractual obligation and the fire retro is roughly $1 million. And we have had an increase in capital improvement fund, $300,000. Our Passaic Valley water increase of $306,000. So those are just some of the big ticket items. Again, we're trying to send a message that we're looking to do more with less. And I anticipate this budget, the remaining months of this budget, working into the 2020 budget next year, will be moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the report of the mayor. Just to piggyback for a second on what Mr. Iacono said, this year's budget is a $6 million increase over last year. That does not mean we are raising taxes to recover that $6 million. That simply means we have increased revenue. The $132 increase that we are raising only represents $1.2 million. So we are not raising taxes to eat $6 million increase. We haven't spent $6 million more. We have increased revenues from either construction code. We have $1 million in a fire or police bond or grant coming in. So that's why it brings the budget up. We're only raising taxes $1.2 million for that $132 increase. And keep in mind, while we did the PBA contracts in 2008, PBA went 4 years. We had to come up with 4 years of retro for PBA in 18. In 19, we had the fire, and that equaled 1.1 million. So if you realize that we're raising taxes 1.2, and 1.1 of that is this year's retro for 4 years, that's where we were at. That was that. So just wanted to put that out there. Real quick, so currently we have a lot going on. We did a test. My life continues to be consumed with North Water, 4 to 6 hours a day dealing with North Water. I am holding a press conference on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock at the State Fair parking lot. That I'm going to be addressing a litany of water-related issues. And I'm going to be once again reiterating the township's request for the state DEP to provide water filters to Belleville residents strictly out of an abundance of caution. We are not mandated. Nobody's being mandated to do that, but we are asking once again out of abundance of caution. We did have a township engineer perform tests of our schools ahead of the children going back. All of our schools came back totally clear. Most were non-detect. We do not have the results for school 4. We had an issue getting in the building. We've been in, we've tested it, we're just waiting for the results to come in for that. Today I spent noontime at our Tuesday Senior Club. I'll also be visiting the Friday Club as well. The township was able to secure the funds to purchase a new bingo board for them, so I went and returned the $1,300 check that the Tuesday Club wrote. We'll be returning the check that the Friday Club wrote. The one thing that did happen, though, is we went in there. Basically, we, the township, spent about $4,000 on a bingo board for them, for our seniors, which was great. I happened to walk in, and I've never spent $4,000 and been attacked for it before. I saw it the second I walked in. I walked in, and the board is just too small. It's smaller than the previous one they had. They're not happy about it. I'm not happy about it. We're looking at a replacement as we speak. We already contacted the company. They will take it back, and that'll work out. But we spent $4,000, and I got attacked for it today. Welcome to my life. We do have a new senior bus coming. I have been promising that since last year's budget. That will be in this week or next week. I plan on performing an inaugural ride with them, maybe even a champagne breaking ceremony. Obviously, council will be invited to that. I've been in contact once again with the state, dealing with Rutgers and Main Street. They are back to the drawing table. They are going to sign an agreement, or I should say we're going to sign an agreement with the state. Once that agreement is signed, once the county signs their part, they are going to pave that horrible intersection. North Water, obviously we already touched that. There's a lot of updates we had. We've been performing tests. We got Clara Boss to perform some lead screenings. They have been performing screenings. Because of privacy and HIPAA laws, I can't say too much other than we have not had a positive test come back yet, thank God. As far as numbers and specific details, we're not going to get into. We have not had a positive test though, which is great. Great news. Future, keep in mind, October 5th and 6th, a Saturday and Sunday, we have townwide garage sales. Please register so you can be included in the advertisements. Our library on October 5th. October 5th is going to be a busy day for us. Our library is doing Hispanic Heritage Day at the library. They're having outdoor music. We're shutting down the street. Township's going to join them in that celebration. We also have a free rabies clinic that day on October 5th from 10 a.m. to 12. We are once again going forward with our fall arts and crafts registration, something that we've been adamant on offering non-sport related activities through our rec program. That went very well last year. We're looking forward to that again. We do have our food truck festival coming up Saturday, October 12th. Live bands, DJ is going to be there. We brought in a headline band, New Power Soul. I've spent 10 years of my life attending different concerts in various municipalities in my private life, and New Power Soul is among the best you're going to ever see. They're considered a headliner, and we're bringing them in for that. Police Department Community Outreach Day is October 20th. Obviously, our Veterans Day weekend will be coming up in November. That's going to be November 9th, 5K, and our Sunday, November 10th parade, where we always look to incorporate community organizations, school district, classes, all that great stuff. So that's the future. We are not doing committee reports today. It's the second event, but we did have, I usually go backwards a little bit. We did last week have Just a Party, 15th year. Councilwoman Burke, who I know is on the phone, this is her thing. She kind of created this thing 15 years ago. She serves on the committee. I serve with her on that committee. Great just departing, thousands of people there. Obviously, no incidents. Great job by our police department, by our DPW, and it was just a great night all around. With that being said, I am going to move forward to our special action, which would be a public hearing on the municipal budget for 2019. Is this when I do my thing or no? Yeah? Okay.
I can start because you did the first one.
So we already came to order.
Yes, for the roll.
You do your part now, Madam Clerk.
Mayor, this is the time for the public hearing on the municipal budget amendment for 2019. The amendment was approved by the governing body on September 10th, 2019, was advertised in full as required by law on September 13th, 2019, together with notice of hearing for this time. Printed copies have been made available to the public. A supply is here for anyone desiring a copy.
Anyone who has not secured a copy of the budget amendment may now do so. They are located in the back row of the council room here. So before opening this hearing, I wish to outline the procedure. Each person desiring to be heard will rise and give his or her name and address before speaking. I will recognize one speaker at a time in order of rising as nearly as I can determine. Please address all questions to the chair. Where necessary, they will be referred to the individual members of the governing body or municipal officers or professionals. Questions must be confined solely to the municipal budget amendment that is before us. School and county matters are not proper subject to this hearing and cannot be discussed or answered tonight. I now declare the open public hearing on the municipal budget amendment of 2019. We're open, basically.
Go ahead. Yes, I'll speak first, since Mr. Frantantoni surprisingly isn't here to start the process. Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street. Just so that and the rest of the community are on the same page and understand these numbers, because it is quite intimidating and confusing to, unless you're an accountant, to make sense of all of this. Summary, the total amount of the municipal tax levy, if I'm reading your sheets correctly, for 2019 is $53,317,941.77. I guess Mr. Falcone can confirm if that's correct.
No, the correct number is 52,367,791.
And then what is the difference between that number and the 53,317?
Are you reading the bottom line? Because that might include the library.
I am on the second page at line number 6. It says amount to be raised by taxes for support of municipal budget. There is a subsection A, local tax for municipal purposes, including reserve. And then it says the total amount to be raised by taxes for support of municipal budget. That line then indicates
$53,317,941.77. That includes the library, $950,151.
Okay, thank you. That's also the library. All right. And since you mentioned the library, I know we're supposed to confine our questions to the municipal, but what is the county's part of this?
The county levy is not part of our municipal budget, it's part of our tax.
You don't know what that number is offhand?
Yes, I do.
It's really not pertinent to this amendment, though.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to understand the overall, the final numbers, so I can better understand the breakdown by percentage, how much of each tax dollar collected by the town hall stays with the municipal, and what fraction goes to the school system, the county, and the library. Do you have that percentage breakdown?
No, I don't have that percentage breakdown, but that will be available probably by the end of the week after the Essex County Tax Board certifies your levies and tax rates,
Okay.
which is also certified by the Division of Local Government Services.
Is that
The
something?
Division can't certify any of the township's numbers until our budget's adopted this evening.
All right. Is that something that will be sent to all of us?
Well, it'll be sent to the tax office for verification, and then I'm sure it can be made available to the public.
That will be included in the fourth quarter tax bills, that percentage?
We're really going to keep these questions to this budget amendment.
All right, well, this is germane to the budget.
Well, no, it's not germane to the budget amendment, though.
When will we get our fourth quarter tax statement?
You could ask that question during public participation. This is really about just this specific amendment. I have to keep it just to that.
All right. Let me see if there's anything else. All right, that's essentially all I wanted to ask at this moment, so thank you.
Sir, in the back?
Yes, Nelson Barrera, 89 Van Houten. I'm just curious, other expenses, it went from 9,500 to 167. What's other expenses that it went up such a big jump?
What department or agency are you talking about?
Number 8 on the second page.
Is that the mayor and council's office
Office of the yes.
or office of the manager? Which
Yeah.
one? Office of the manager went from 110 to 185. There was a shift in salaries and wages to contractual agreements of 75,000. You see salaries went down 75,000, and the other expense line item went up 75,000.
It's a wash, basically.
They moved somebody around?
Yes.
It went down in one line and went up in the other line.
Right, but it's under other expenses, that it went from 9,500 to 167,000.
He's talking the mayor's office. That's other expenses, I assume other items came up between the introduction and the amendment now that we were not aware of at the time of introduction.
Anybody else? Sir?
Yes. Jared Bershel, East Grove Street. In the same line item, what expenses came up then? Was never answered. You're talking about over $150,000.
I don't have the answer to that. I don't have the detail.
I don't have the answer.
Well, who has an answer? Does the
We're figuring
manager have an
We're
answer?
figuring that out, actually, right now.
Well, we're voting on this tonight, we should know.
I just said we're figuring it out. The top
Okay,
professionals.
that's why I asked the manager, if the manager knows.
And then we increased that line item to include expenses, other expenses in the mayor's office. I believe there was.
I can tell you that it's not my salary, because my salary is $7,000.
That'll be my next question, by the way.
Is that the construction as well?
It's
as
renovation.
in that?
And there's no renovation. There's no renovation there. No, there's a bond, there's money in a bond that hasn't been drawn yet.
And one additional salary?
Well, that would, again, not be in the other
Oh,
expense
I
line
won't be
item.
able to, yeah, I won't be in that.
I'll get the notes out.
In the meantime, I have another question about the line item right above. The $43,000 original, that is the actual wages of the council. 6 members at $6,000, and the mayor who gets $7,000. That adds up to $43,000. Yet, it's being changed to $83,000. Now I'm asking, are you getting a raise, or where is this extra $40,000 going?
Not at all. I have not gotten a raise. Matter of fact, the mayor and council.
Has not gotten a raise since the whole thing was initiated.
That's not true. Actually, in 2000, the salaries were reduced for the mayor and council.
It was.
18 years ago. So even though every employee gets a 2 to 2.5% raise every year, mayor and council have been stagnant for 18 years. And the only time it
Jerry, you
changed
recommending
before
we
that
get
was
one?
actually a reduction.
You're recommending we get one?
No, I'm just saying,
My
where is
guess-
this $40,000?
My guess, if it's $40,000, Anthony and Joe,
Go ahead.
and Joe, my guess is there's $40,000 in there. The salary for the employee that works for mayor and council has been moved to there and not in the manager's office.
Right.
Because that salary
mayor's
is
office.
just under $40,000.
All right, then, if that's just a move around, while you're looking for the extra $150,000, I have another question. In the law department, that budget is going up, from what I am seeing, by $300,000.
Those are settlements.
So, yeah, I'm so glad you caught that. Let me back up 1 second. In 2018, the taxpayers of Belleville paid out $241,000 in lawsuit settlements and legal fees for lawsuit settlements. That was lawsuits that were filed by employees and former employees that were probably unjustly fired, that should have never been fired. They sued us and we lost $241,000 in 2018. In 2019, guess what? We're still paying. So we're paying $565,000 this year in settlements because of lawsuits that people were unjustly treated, fired, terminated. Who knows what was going on in this place for the last couple of years. That's a combination of legal fees and settlements of $565,000. Oh, you're right, not settlements, that's what court-ordered payments, we lost, basically, and that's what we had to pay out. So $565,000 this year, and $241,000 last year, that's $800,000 in the last 2 years taxpayers have paid out because of how people were treated here over the past couple of years.
All right, then let me ask you a question. Why isn't there a line item under the law department for salaries? I would assume that would include our municipal manager, our municipal attorney's salary in there someplace.
Joe, I don't know if you heard
I'm
that.
sorry, no, I didn't hear the
In
question.
the law department, there's no salaries and wages there?
None listed at all.
Sure there is, it's $305,000 for salaries and wages in the township attorney's office.
So there's no change, and that's why it's not here, is that what we're saying?
Right, there's no.
Right, there's no change.
There's no change from the introduction to the amendment, correct?
Okay. Let's go then to the end of this. Total appropriations. And I assume appropriations means money that's going to be spent.
Correct.
Okay. It's going from $67,700 to $71,476. Approximately 3 million, oh, I'm sorry, that's million, 67,748,827.15 to 71,376,208.67. Is that not more than $3.7 million?
Correct.
Well, why is it going that high? Is that different from a year ago?
Yeah, the bulk of that is grants. We got $2 million in new grants between the introduction and now the amendment. We got a grant for beautification for $1.5 million. You got the SAFER grant for $1 million for the fire department. You got the transportation grant for roads for $600 and some thousand. So that's the bulk of it.
So what you're saying is we're spending an extra $3.5 million,
Well, no, we're not
basically
really-
involving mostly grants.
Correct, the bulk of it is grants.
Okay, then the revenues should reflect
That's why,
that also, correct?
that's why the mayor was indicating to you that even though the budget is going up as much as it is, the tax rate is
I think
only
you walked in
$1
late.
million too.
No, I caught the beginning. I caught it at the beginning. Now, did we ever get the answer to that initial question?
Yeah, sure. So, thank you for your patience. Obviously, you know that I was not here when the budget was initially introduced. But, and I can't explain why they put this in the O&E under the mayor's office, because when you see some of these items, it probably maybe could have been coded a little different. But there's a, in this budget, under that line item that you're referring to, there's a $35,000. We hired a public relation firm. There's also a $30,000 newsletter that goes out to the residents. We increased our firework budget by $17,500. There's two senior parties.
We didn't increase it.
Not increase it, it's to that, I apologize. There's this, two senior parties at $5,000 apiece. There's also a special event fund that has $20,000 in it. We have a ESL program and a tax prep program for seniors at $10,000. There's also $15,000 to upgrade IT IT rip and replace and software. So that's where you get roughly $157,000.
I think that's also the software that we're going to use for the agendas and all. Again, I don't know why that's in that
Yeah.
department, but.
Yeah, again, I probably, if I was here when the
Can I see
budget,
that, yeah?
when the budget was actually put together, I probably would have taken some of those items.
I can square it away a little easier for you. There's, we,
Is that compass stuff?
iCompass?
iCompass is that. There's $10,000 for senior services to provide, which we just bought a board for. Special events fund of $10,000 is in there. The ESL is in there, that's in there. And, oh, we got it, the agenda, yeah. So nothing is specific to the mayor's office. I'm not quite sure why it's in there. But these are all things that we've discussed at various work sessions too.
Okay, but is it proper to have something that doesn't belong in the
I guess they
manager's
can write it off if anybody's.
Come November 1st, we can transfer it. That's the proper.
Yeah, it sounds like it
Things
should
around
be in the manager's office.
Okay.
Actually, no, I think
Some of that is recreation.
the senior stuff should be in rec. The agenda software should be either in the clerk's office or IT. The fireworks should be rec, yeah, no, there's not.
We'll do that by transfer after November.
Thank you.
After November first.
Okay, that's the questions I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Frantantoni?
I'm sorry I was late. Don't know if some of these answers the question. I think something that Mr. Gersha was saying I raised there. The office of the manager, other expenses went from 9,500 to 167,000.
Yeah, we explained that already.
I wasn't here. What was that reason?
You answered that already, Mr. Patron. Do you want to tackle that again real quick?
157?
Yeah,
Is it?
he wants to know what it is. Yeah, same question.
Anthony has, I don't have that detail.
No, that's not it. He's talking about the
I think we,
manager's office.
Oh, the
We- we
75,000 in the manager's
we
office?
took money out of
Salaries and
salary
wages,
wages and
transfer
put
to
it in
other
all
expenses.
we need, and that covers consulting,
Contractual obligation.
contractual obligation.
It's cool.
I'm talking about the salaries,
Salaries went down 75,000.
43,000 to 83,000.
That's the mayor's office.
That's $40,000 increase.
Correct.
For what?
That's the staff that now works the mayor and council's office.
Okay, I think we can eliminate that. Other expenses went from 9,500 to 167,000.
I just read that item by item of what makes that make sense.
It's not, we're going to change that, should not be in the mayor's office. It's
Categorized wrong.
recreation, yeah, we just went through it. It's all either recreation, IT, or different programs like ESL program, extra money for senior services, fireworks budget, which really was the same as the year before, so I'm not sure why that's in there, and the agenda software for the mayor and council, planning board and zoning board meetings. Again, none of that should have been in the mayor's office, so it'll get moved out in November.
So there's so many errors, number one, who's making this up? And what are they getting paid for making all these errors?
I never said it was an error. It could stay there, but I would prefer it not be on my account.
Well, it should be so the public can really know where the money is. and all.
Sure. Right now, the money's there.
Where it's being spent, the details of each
We
item.
read it, Mr. Frantantoni. You were late, unfortunately, but we went through line by line.
I heard from Mr. Cohen that included in this is grants, and here's the dollar amount for grants.
They're in excess of $2 million, almost $3 million worth of grants.
Okay, from my understanding, when you get a grant,
You
you
got
have to
offsetting
put that money in the budget.
as a revenue and an appropriation.
That's why it appears that the budget went up by so much.
After the project is completed, we submit to the state and we'll reimburse that money.
Correct.
Correct. I never see, under anticipated revenues, those return of the grant money.
But because we spend it, we don't return it.
But it should come, if we get a $200,000 grant to do a street, yes, I know we have to provide an ordinance to appropriate that money. We spend it, then we send the completed documents to the state, they send us $200,000 back. So, what are you spending it? Why isn't it come back and come off the budget at some point?
It doesn't, you got a revenue for $200,000, you got an appropriation for $200,000. You realize the revenue in the budget, if you look on page 9, you'll see the revenue realized, and if you look on page 24, you'll see the expenditure spent. So it's offsetting, you got a revenue, and you received the revenue, and you got expenditure, and you spent it.
But when we get the money back from the state, where does it show up in the budget?
It's under the realized column. Look at page 9 of your budget, and you'll see it, realized. And that's what this collective legislation.
As long as I don't have the whole budget with me. And the other one, capital improvements, I don't know if this was asked, went from 400,000.
It went from 100 to 400. There's a $300,000 increase. Earlier in the year, the township adopted some various ordinances, and you need a 5% down payment for the ordinances. So we didn't have a reserve in the capital improvement fund. We had to appropriate the additional money for our 5% down payment.
Well, the document I have, which is distributed, shows it going from 400,000.
No, it's going from 100 to 400.
Well, this says 400,000 to $1,019,000.
Okay, there's a grant there for $619,000. The capital improvement fund went from 100 to 400, the grants went from 0 to 600,000. And that's part of, that's from the state transportation grant for roads.
We got a $619,000
Right,
grant,
right.
so where we spend it. But this, the capital improvements, that's the 5% down payment, right?
Yep,
Is this the entire amount spent?
it's not spent. You need a 5% down payment, so based on the ordinances that were adopted, we're anticipating that we would need $400,000 in the capital improvement fund. At this point in time, I don't know how many ordinances were adopted, but if all the ordinances that were in the capital budget get approved and adopted, we would spend that $400,000. And if it's not spent, it'll be reserved in next year's budget, and then you can appropriate less next year because you have it in the bank, as they say.
But it's being, not 400,000, being raised to $1,019,000.
You're mixing apples and apples. I'm saying to you, the capital improvement fund is one item. It went from 100 to 400. The other is $619,000. That's for road improvements. The road improvements will be supported by an ordinance for $619,000 and doesn't require a down payment. The other is for down payment money only, the 5% down payment required by the state, or by law. So the ordinances that were contemplated earlier in the year required $400,000 for 5% down payment. So that's it.
Well, and so will we be getting that $619,000
Yes, we
grant
sure
back?
will, yes.
Yeah, well, and where will it show up at that time in the
You'll
budget?
see it on page 9 also. All the revenues are on page 9. The grants are on page 24, and if it's a capital grant, it'll go on page 26A, like you see it there.
Okay, well, it's getting harder and harder for the taxpayers to pay the bills. Somebody's got to start tightening the belt around here. And some of the people, you know, if you're a civic group, more and more are being put on the payroll. Maybe we can control that to some extent.
Thank you, Mr. Frantantoni. I would also like to say that our municipal workforce is lower today than it was a year ago, and lower today than it was 2 years ago. Anybody else?
Mayor Charles, 95 Bell Street. I'm not going to ask you to repeat everything because a few questions I had were just answered, even though I'm late. But my question is, if I'm reading this correctly, the budget's going up 3.7 mil?
You missed
that correct?
too, Matt.
You missed that too.
I'm not asking you for details. I said, is that the total amount that is going up?
No.
What is the total amount?
The budget overall is up from $6,070,000.
That's from 18 to 19.
18 to 19.
What he's talking about is from the introduced to
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
amended, it's going up to 3.7.
Yeah, gotcha.
Sorry, yeah, that's what I'm reading here. I'm just looking at the numbers here. So in other words, you're going up 3.7 million.
Yeah.
All right, my other question is, what does that equate to per household, based on, or whatever assessment you use?
It really doesn't. You can't take the 3 million that's going up because the average household is going up $132, which really is only 1.2 million. So we're only raising from taxes 1.2 million in that $132. The rest is additional revenue. Just because the
I
budget
understand
goes
what you're
up
saying.
doesn't mean we're spending more money. Well,
Well, that's why I'm asking.
It doesn't mean that we're raising the additional money through taxes. It means that we're getting higher,
Right.
$1 million in
So the
construction.
3.7 is not the true amount that you're raising by taxation?
1.2 is.
Right, okay, that's my question I was asking. All right, no problem.
Sure. So, observing no further applicants from the floor, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public?
Second?
We have a motion made and second. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
I abstain.
Mayor Melham?
Yes. So that was to,
Close the public hearing.
was that also to adopt?
No.
So,
So we need a motion to adopt?
because here it says it was
No.
adopted at this point. We should have made a motion to close and adopt. So we need a motion to adopt now.
No, I have to read.
Oh,
Go to the
That's
second
right,
page.
close.
here the resolution's adopted.
That's to close the public hearing with the resolution
Resolution to close the public.
for the amendment.
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
Slippery there, getting slippery.
Thank you.
Am I right?
Slippery.
No. Go to the second page.
I'm on the second page. I didn't know
Now turn the page.
I didn't know there was 2 pages.
Turn the page.
Turn the page.
Go ahead, somebody read, Vinnie.
Mayor, I request that the clerk be instructed to read Section 2, the adopting resolution for the budget.
The clerk will read the resolution.
Section 2, upon adoption for year 2019. Be resolved by the governing body of the Township of Belleville, County of Essex, that the budget hereinbefore set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated in the sums therein and set forth as appropriations and authorization of the amount of $52,367,790.77 for municipal purposes and $950,151 minimum library tax.
I offer the foregoing resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelob Burke?
I have a few comments. I do not agree with another tax increase. Our residents are struggling as it is to pay their current taxes. Voting yes for this budget is like voting yes for another tax increase. Therefore, in true conscience, my vote on this budget is no.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes, the resolution is adopted.
The budget is adopted.
Total campaign mode. How does she vote on last year's budget increase? So we had that, public hearing is done, the resolution is done, communications.
Letter received from Dean Donatelli Esquire stating the planning board of the Township of Belleville reviewed at their September 16th meeting the Valley Business District Rehabilitation Plan and recommends to the mayor and council to adopt and approve the plan.
Hold on, we're getting there. Ordinances.
Ordinance number 1 for introduction, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Belleville, amending Chapter 21 of the Property Maintenance Code.
Motion introduced.
Second.
Motion made, second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelob Burke?
Yes.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2 for introduction. Bond ordinance reappropriating $140,000, proceeds of obligations not needed for their original purpose in order to provide for the acquisition of a front-end loader in and by the Township of Belleville in the County of Essex, New Jersey.
Motion introduced.
Second.
Motion made, second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelob Burke?
Yes.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3 for introduction. Ordinance approving a financial agreement for long-term tax exemption by and between the Township of Belleville and 78-102 Washington Avenue Urban Renewal LLC.
Motion introduced.
Second.
Motion made, second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelob Burke?
Yes.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes. Ordinances for public hearing, second and final reading.
Ordinance number 1 for public hearing, ordinance of the mayor and council of the Township of Belleville, County of Essex, New Jersey, adopting the Valley Business District Rehabilitation Plan.
Motion open for public.
Second.
Motion made and second, open for public, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell?
Yes.
Strumelob Burke?
Yes.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes. Mr. Frantantoni.
Yes, in regards to this ordinance, we finally got a great application before the planning board for an industrial warehouse down on Main Street. I hope this last minute ordinance is not putting some roadblocks in their way. I went to the hearing.
It's actually helping them.
What?
We're helping.
It's actually helping them.
Well, some things I hope so, but there's some things that seem, I don't know why they were doing it. For example, the side yard requirements were increased from requiring 5 feet to 75 feet on both sides and the rear yard. that takes a lot of space away from the property owner for development.
It also provides a bigger buffer for the neighbors that live there. Why wouldn't you want that? You're gonna have a warehouse, giant trucks in people's backyards. We've just increased it 75 feet. They have to be 75 feet further away from the residents. Why would you be upset with that?
Because I know most of the residents down there, they know they're in an industrial place.
Oh,
And I can
okay.
say increase it a little bit, but not from 5 to 75 feet.
And if it was 75 and we reduced it to 5, you'd be standing here screaming about it.
No,
No, okay.
no,
You wouldn't.
it's a little excessive. And
Let's agree
the
more
other thing
space.
is that some of them are good, I like some of them. The other thing, one of the big concerns is the land use requirements for block 1002, lot 1. That's a tiny lot that's between Main Street curve and Route 21. It's on the east side of Main Street. It's not contiguous to this property. And that's being designated as open space. It's a very small lot, I think it's 1,000 square feet or 1,200 square feet. There's a little, they say there's a building on it. It's a little brick building that was the pump house for Wallace and, for Walter Kitty years ago. So it can't be used by the public. So I don't know why it's be considered as open space.
You don't want it to be open space?
Huh?
You don't want it to be open space?
No, the reason is,
I'm having
We
trouble
want-
with your line of questioning today. You're usually fighting for open space, now
Yes.
you don't want it open space.
listen
You
carefully.
usually want more space
I
and buffers,
want-
now you're reducing it.
I want open space. As our engineer, Tom Herrick, said, we're supposed to have 368, and we only got it 68.
But you're questioning why
I want,
this is open space?
well, I'm telling you, if you let me finish, and open your ears instead of your mouth. I want open space for recreation for the public to use. The public cannot use this. It's classified as open space. You're gonna use it towards our requirement, what we're required to have open space, and it's useless. It's the shoulder of Route 21. The public, I can't go down with my grandkids, and you can't go down and play catch with somebody down there. This is not open space that's usable for our residents. So I don't want
What
to...
would you like it to be called?
Huh?
Open
Just a
space
vacant
time?
piece of land, sell it
Okay.
back to the state, get some money, because they don't,
Is
you know, it's not maintained.
that on the, that's on the other side where the rail is and everything? Right next to the river?
Yes,
It was their pump house.
it's
Yeah,
next,
'cause we,
It was the pump house, we're calling it open space. I
Why
failed
can't
to
we
see
call
what
it
the
space?
problem is, but,
Yeah.
okay.
but that's the
Noted.
problem I have, Mr. Rubel. Our children, our citizens, we can't take a walk there, we can't go play ball there. This is not open space that's used for recreation. You're never gonna be able to use it for recreation.
It doesn't say used for recreation, it just says open space.
it won't be
Yeah,
touched.
but open space, as we all interpret what we want open space, is for recreation. And good
The
thing.
Great Lawn is considered
This
open
is-
space,
huh?
it's not used for recreation.
It's great, it's gonna be attractively landscaped and all, which is nice, but it's useless open space. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
So I hope I hope this development takes place, and real soon it'll be a great asset to the town.
It will be. We'll be the first mayor and council to actually get it done. Sir?
Yeah, my name is Tom Capitelli. I live at 86 Heckle Street in Belleville. And I've been having a problem.
Tom,
This is
this
just
this
on the ordinance.
This is only on
Just
the
on the
ordinance.
one ordinance.
This is on this ordinance.
So-
When in public, you can talk.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is, but-
yeah, no, this is just
it's
on the
coming.
ordinance.
I'll call on you. Don't worry about it. I'll call on you.
Sorry.
This is just specific to the ordinance.
Yes.
Michael Sheldon, you mentioned a few moments ago that this rehabilitation plan is actually going to help with the warehouse project. Could you explain to us succinctly how that's going to happen? What are the key components of this rehabilitation plan that will help usher in this 325,000 square foot warehouse on the former Finkelstein property?
To the best of my knowledge, there's two main issues. The applicant originally applied for, I'm using round numbers, say 375,000 square foot warehouse, but he would have needed 500 parking spaces in order to conform to that. You don't need 500 parking spots for 375,000 square foot warehouse. So he would have needed a variance, he would have to go through a lot of hurdles to get that done. Additionally, the height restriction is about, and don't quote me on it, call it 35, 36 feet. In order to get the top level for rent, you really need a little north of 40. So really what he came to us and requested was the fact that we would do an overlay zone or area in need of rehabilitation and take the plan that he wanted, work with them on that, allow him to get what he wanted, which is a large, slightly larger warehouse, and allow him to go a little higher and reduce the parking requirement for him.
To help facilitate you.
Which then gives us the ability to kind of direct him. If we didn't do that, he would have been able to build within 5 feet or 10 or 15 feet of the property line. So us doing that for him, we were able to create a nicer plan with buffers and berms and 75 feet away from residents as opposed to only a few feet away. So it's a win-win for the developer, it's a win-win for the neighbors that are there, it's a win-win for the township. He's also contributing toward an indoor recreation facility. So we just heard Mr. Frantantoni speak about recreation. So this developer is also contributing toward an indoor recreation facility. I envision it to be something like indoor turf or indoor soccer facility, anything like that. It's a great plan. It's nobody standing in his way. We've actually removed a lot of the hurdles for him.
The indoor facility would be located, I assume, elsewhere in the township.
Elsewhere, but within close proximity of that.
Do you have any
No, we didn't.
comment on that? All right. And if I understood you correctly a few moments ago, the original square footage for this warehouse was 375?
I said, don't quote me on it, it was larger than what he was then going to have to propose if he was going to match the parking
It would have to come for a
requirement.
variance.
He would have to come in for a variance.
It's a matter of getting rid of the variance.
He did not want to come in for the variance, though. He was just going to reduce the size.
Reduce the size.
So we're letting him go a little larger than
Alright.
what his initial plan wanted to
Initially,
do.
anticipated.
I just want to say I'm very happy to know that you're supporting this and doing everything you can to bring this about. Because I
Well,
think
you
this is-
remember there were a lot of rumors that we were trying to stop it, and we're not
There was
trying to stop
rumors.
it. We actually paved the way to let this happen.
As I always joke, if Belleville excels in anything, it's the rumor mill. You know how this
A lot of
community
people out there
is.
that spread them too.
But I'm glad that this project hopefully is going to come to fruition, hopefully within the next year or so.
And again, I'll say it again, but on this particular site and on the site next door, which is where the fabric warehouse is, it's this mayor and this council as a body, the first time in 30 to 40 years, that's going to finally get something built on those two properties.
I agree, it's long overdue, but as long as it's the right development for everyone in this township. Thank you.
Anybody else on this specific, Mr. Dogersham?
Yes, Jerry Herschel, Grove Street. By designating this a rehabilitation plan instead of a redevelopment plan, and I want to get this on the record, is it not true that if he applies for a pilot, it can only be for 5 years?
That's the maximum he would be ever allowed, is 5 years.
Maximum.
That's just one to get on. Thank you.
sir.
Motion
Motion to
closed.
close public and move for final adoption?
Motion made, second to close public and move for final.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Melham?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Motion open public comments.
Make a motion open for public?
Second.
Motion made, second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Melham?
Yes. We're now open for public, sir. Now would be your time.
Now's your time.
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Thomas Capitelli, Senior, and I live at 86 Heckle Street. And up until this point, I had a nice residence. During the past, from the beginning of September, Mr. Ritaka, who owns a construction company behind my home, decided to move all his dump trucks over to the property. When he did so, he purchased a piece of land that is residential and moved all his, some of his trucks onto the residential property, which is directly behind my home and my fence. So I spoke to Mr. Ritaka and a senior member of the council, and we negotiated moving the truck away from my property because it shakes my house. My house is more like a bungalow. People on the council have been to my home, and it's like a bungalow. You have a heavy truck come near it, and it shakes. And not only my house shakes, but other homes on the block shake as well. So with that, Mr. Rotako said, all right, I'm gonna move the truck over. So he moved it 2 doors away. Okay? And it wasn't parking one truck behind my home, 3 huge dump trucks behind my home. So I had some damage in my home from the shaking. Also, he's been operating round the clock. He's been there from, and we've had many calls go to the police department from many of my neighbors. Okay? Went to the police department about noise pollution, and all day Sunday, this Sunday, trucks were running the entire day. Okay? There's an ordinance about running trucks from the state. It's 3 minutes to run your truck. Not half hours, not hours. And when you run so many trucks at once, 16 trucks to be exact, when you run so many of them at once, it fills the air. Even though you have those air pollution devices on the truck, it fills the air. You smell it. Okay? I have pictures of what it looks like and what it looked like behind my home. And this is my countertop that I put in 2 years ago, a granite countertop that I paid a lot of money for. And it cracked.
He means idling. When you say Brian, he means
Yeah,
idling. You mean idling, right?
So,
The noise pollution, we spoke about that, me and Mr. Rotako, and also the town code department.
the construction official.
Yeah, and we spoke about it.
That was my question. Have you notified or made a
Yeah, Frank
complaint?
called him up, Frank called me up too, and he spoke to him and told him, you know, tried to stop the trucks from being behind my home and all this stuff. But it's to no avail because the whole neighborhood is upset.
Sure.
And one of my neighbors has a petition from all the neighbors on the block. So this is something that we have to address. Our home values are plummeting. We're getting higher taxes. And with all this behind my home, and if you look at those pictures that I gave you, you would say, how the hell are you going to get any equity in your home with this behind it? So I don't know what else to do. You know, I don't want to keep going to the code department. I asked for, I made a Oprah report for the resolutions to find out if he had variances to have dump trucks back there, because for years, he only had little tiny ambulances. And those horns were no comparison to the horns that he has now. When those horns go off at 3:16 in the morning, I call the police, because the only people that can cover that is the city. Because we notified the state, the EPA, and they said you have to tell the city. I also told Rotako I was doing this. But we have to resolve this. This can't be behind homes. He moved all his trucks from his Bloomfield property to the Belleville property. I don't understand why.
Okay, well, I know you've been in contact with Mr. Di Lorenzo, and I thought he was going to be here today. Unfortunately, he's
I
not
was
here.
hoping he was.
He left it.
Mr. Iacono, I saw him diligently taking some notes, so he will give you his business card, or you guys can exchange information. He'll make sure that he gets with Mr. Di Lorenzo and has to call you tomorrow or have a conversation with you. I can assure you that Mr. Iacono will follow up directly. And that chief, is idling a police issue, or?
Yeah, it can be.
It can be.
We
And
called the police, and
we always ask, just so you know, we always ask residents to.
I call them at 3:16 in the morning when trucks start up.
They don't mind. You're not bothering them. They're doing their job. The chief will tell you directly, please call. You're not
We do,
burdening
and they
them.
say, nothing against Mark here, but, excuse me. Nothing against Mark, but I called up and I got, well, if I have a car, I'll send it over, you know, and some of the neighbors got different kind of answers than I got. Okay, so just, we need to just tell them that this can't go on.
Okay. I'm assuming Mr. Iacono will be on this tomorrow.
Through the chair, just a real quick question, Tom. Are these all the Taco's trucks?
Yes,
All his trucks.
Well,
Or does he rent?
he
Or is
said-
he renting out?
he said that he was renting it out. And I
That's a
don't
whole
know
separate issue.
if that's true, because I have another neighbor that's supposed to show up here tonight that said he saw all these trucks on his other property in Bloomfield, and it's the same trucks that were there are here.
I mean, does it say Retaco Construction on them, or what does it say? Okay, when you get a chance, let
Yeah, I'll
us
take
let us
a
know.
look.
Mr. Iacona, we'll sit with Mr. Lewitt, we'll check the variances to see what they even have the appropriate uses for that property.
I don't think, many calls for service we actually did receive.
Okay. Great. Anybody else?
Well, I have a petition here from some of the neighbors.
Okay. I just need your name and.
My name is
address.
James Kyle. I'm on 78 Emerald Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've had the same thing.
Okay.
3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they start up. The air tanks are going. You hear the air tanks going. They dump they raise and lower their dumpers. It shakes everything, shakes the whole house.
Makes sense.
Saturday afternoon, they were washing all the trucks. I don't know where all the wastewater is going into our environmental system and the rivers and ends up in North Bay, which we've been trying to clean up for how many years. They have to go on local streets to get there, and those local streets are torn up enough. We don't need heavy trucks that are supposed to be on county roads,
Right.
not on residential streets, moving in and out. And moving the trucks every afternoon, they're working on the trucks, you hear impact wrench, backing up, you hear beepers. The first day that they were doing it, which was September 3rd, I was sleeping. My cat comes in my room making alarm calls. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And I went in the back and saw all this activity. Poor guy doesn't want to sleep in the back window anymore.
I bet. Mr. Iacona will definitely get with construction code, so that, the first thing they're gonna check out is what uses they're allowed to have there. And then they can deal with the
It's
inconvenience.
right up against everybody's property.
I asked for the variances
Okay.
for it.
We'll make sure that Mr. Iacona is on it.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right.
Mayor of the Draws 95 Basket. I asked the same question I asked the last two meetings, plain and simple. I said to you at the last meeting, one of us is right, one of us is wrong in regards to the Chapter 19. And I'm just still waiting for the town attorney to give us an opinion.
Okay, thank you. Noted. Anybody else? Mr. Sheldon?
Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street. 4 quick thank yous and then one question. First of all, a lot of thank yous for Mr. Iacona and Mr. Gilbert. When I was here last meeting, I was complaining about the power situation here. Not only has that outlet been restored, but you had a courtesy of providing me with a secondary extension
You
cord.
also alluded it was conspiracy that we.
No, I didn't want to keep it. I said I didn't want it to dispose of it.
You alluded to
I
conspiracy.
appreciate the duplicity tonight. No, I did point out that while this outlet is properly wired, you do have an open ground for this one, so you might want to have one of your people
Another
check
conspiracy.
into it. The ground isn't connected there. At the last meeting, I brought up the fact that Little Street, near Beach Street, there was a partial cave-in. Amazingly, to credit to Mr. Iacona and Mr. Gilbert, within 2 days after announcing this, the DPW was there repairing the street. It doesn't look like it's fully repaired yet. They still have part of it filled in with gravel. But I was just curious, what was the nature of the problem? Was it a sewer line, a water line? What was causing the cave? It was a water main?
I'm not aware, but I'm told it was a water main.
All right.
Water main.
So I guess it's still in the process of being repaired?
Yeah.
So, okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that. And at the last meeting, I talked about how we hadn't had any street sweeping for the last, at least the last 3 weeks. The last 2 weeks, street sweepers were present, so good fortune. I thank everyone for taking care of some of my
3
my
for 3,
concerns.
we're gonna stop there?
No, I got one more, I actually have one more thank you, and it's for you. I appreciate your concern about testing the water quality in our schools. I just, though, however, want everyone to know that since Dr. Tomko arrived here in February of 2015, he has proactively been testing all of the district water, all the water fountains on a regular basis. And following testing that was done in, I believe, June of 2017, he, at his orders, water fountains were filtration units were installed in every fountain throughout the district. So I didn't want people to think that the district itself wasn't on top of this matter. We have been making sure that the water is safe, 100% safe for students, staff, and teachers. So filters are in place. We are making sure that water, at the very least, is safe. Last thing, my question was, in regard to the ordinance that was introduced, number 3, with the long-term tax exemption for 78102 Washington Avenue. Could you tonight just give us a quick summary of what's the nature of that LPTE? If it's a 25, 30-year pilot, et cetera, what are the terms of it?
It's, off the top of my head, it is a 25 years, not a 30 years,
25 years? All right, that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else? Sir, in the back, Nelson?
Mine is quick. Mr. Sheldon
I
mentioned
just
about
need-
the,
I just need your
oh,
name,
Nelson
sir.
Barrera, 89 Van Houten Place. Mr. Sheldon mentioned about the street sweeper. Do they sweep every block in Belleville? Or only certain areas? Because Adelaide does not have street sweeping signs, nor does the sweeper go through there. That's what I...
Signs don't necessarily mean no sweeper. Yeah. But we could, we'll let our DPW go with it. Thank you.
They're not street sweeping signs, by the way.
There are no parking signs, right?
No.
I know, but then, so that,
I'm just making,
it's,
they're not specific for street.
No, right, but you know what I mean.
that's just in case you get a ticket and the street sweeper doesn't come, you can't use that as your defense. That's the trick. That's the trick. I learned that one.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Frantantoni.
Yes, Resolution 5, what, is this reimbursement for the garbage for Essex Park?
Not lights, it's,
It's not garbage, it's for snow cleaning, lighting on the public streets, the streets that are for public cars going on.
I think there's trash reimbursement in as well?
Yeah, and the cleaning of, the removal of leaves. By law, the township has to reimburse the Essex Park for that.
For the cleaning of their streets?
For the snow
We've been doing
removal.
that for years.
Snow, yeah,
It's a condo, right?
We're renegotiating.
We're renegotiating.
It was expired, it's got renegotiated.
And what is the dollar amount?
The dollar amount is $25,000. But there is a, the contract provides for them providing for actual cost and reimbursement if that occurs. So that's the threshold, is the 25,000.
We save
So they have to,
Save a lot of money.
if they get snow, they have to provide invoices of their, what they pay? And there's no
We're
snow,
entitled to request an accounting, yes.
so it's not,
The agreement's not signed yet. Upon passing of this resolution, we'll be signed.
so it's not set at 25,000, definitely,
Well, that's what,
dependent upon.
that, they have to pay that. We have to pay them that. But if they do an accounting of it and it's less, they have to reimburse.
Okay. The other one with number...
And just so you know, it's been, in the past, it's been well over $100,000, what it costs them.
So we've saved money.
We've saved
We're
money.
saving money.
And this contract will save the town money as well, because if you, in the past, the town has paid $41,000, $42,000.
So this is
Over
an
the 10-year length of that contract, it was well over $400,000 that the town paid them for, based on the town's cost.
so that's an average of
Based on-
40,000.
So, about an average of $40,000. We've negotiated an agreement for $25,000.
Yet, Mr. Frantantoni, another example of cost savings, by the way. I know you're always looking for those.
And it's also a classic example of how our politicians not use screw us. The late John Kelly passed that bill. He owned Nutley Savings and Bank, he had a lot of mortgages, and so what happened, these developments had to provide their own garbage pickup, and their own service, because it's a closed community. So the rest of the public can't do that. He introduced the bill, I testified against it, we fought, but they passed it. Because the developers, you know, helped them out a little bit, I think, with campaign contributions and all. So that's how we're in this bind, because our state legislature...
They also pay
you know,
considerable taxes, too.
The what?
They also pay taxes, though. And we don't have to perform those services for them.
Yeah, I know. But what happened, they were appraised, I don't know if you're aware of it, a few years after they built up there and they were paying taxes, they come in and they got tax reductions. They filed tax appeals, all right? So taxes got lowered, and then
Like a dog.
we have a little entertainment on the side here. Yeah. Resolution 6. Where exactly is that property on Mill Street? Franklin Avenue and Montgomery Place, is that west?
Alongside of the development on Mill Street, where they're building the storage facility, they were required to do cleanups by the DEP, and as a result of that, so that there's a deed restriction that nothing can be built on that property, we have to pass this resolution to enter into that so we can sign that deed restriction. It's along the, that corner where the development is, the industrial development.
A condition of their approval was they were supposed to widen Mill Street, the south side of Mill Street heading east. They were supposed to widen that and make a right turn lane. Has that condition been enforced? Because they were given when 2 projects were approved.
I don't believe there's anything to that resolution, Mr. President.
The pharmacy and the storage facility were approved. I brought it up that they had like whatever 17 acres that we could just 8 or 10 feet to make a right turn lane, which would alleviate traffic there. They agreed to that, but then they says they won't do it until the 3rd project. Well now, Wawa was approved there, and I brought it up at that hearing. Are we going to enforce them widening Mill Street? That was in their resolution. Are we going to enforce that? That will alleviate a lot of traffic. Even now, there's a ton of traffic without that completed one. So, who sees that condition is enforced?
I'm sure Mr. Iacono can review that. I do need you to wrap up now, Mr. President.
Okay. And the other one is number 4.
All right. Let's do them all.
Is this, let me come straight forward. Is this for Clearing Field?
That's the school board. Is that the school
Is
board?
Essex County Improvement Authority?
This has to do with the guarantee.
That's we're with the guarantor on.
Right, that's the school board.
Yes,
That's the school board one.
What is that?
That's the
one that you spoke
Here's
about
what
at
we
the last
talked about
meeting.
last night.
Okay, well, if you, I don't know if it was taped or live streamed, I spoke at length about it last night. I'm against going through the ECIA with this. What
And
happens?
you spoke on that last time at the public hearing.
You bypass public, if you want to pass a $3.7, $4.5 million bond ordinance, put it to the voters and get their approval on it.
I do need you to wrap up, Mr. President, Tony. You're way over your time.
Okay, well, they got a lot of problems. We are now paying, you, me, and everybody else is paying for Bear Stadium that they swore at the hearing was going to be paid for by Rick Saron.
I know you spoke on this last time during the public hearing, Mr.
Well, I'm asking you not to vote for this.
Thank you.
Don't get involved with the ECIA.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Gershon?
Yes, this number 6, I don't know if this applies, but what Mr. Frantantoni said was partially true to my memory. I was at the planning board meeting when this was all approved for the development where they're going to put the storage unit and the Wawa. The approval, as far as I know, was there was a condition that they only give a 10-foot right-of-way. So in the event that the corner would be expanded, they would have that property available, so they wouldn't build on it. Now, I believe you did, Mr. Mayor, it was at a council meeting, it was announced that the county has approved widening 2 intersections. This is one of them, because they're both county roads there. And the other one is supposed to be, and I don't know how they're going to widen it even more, is at Geralman and Franklin Avenue. Those 2 were approved. Do you know when they're going to start work on either of those projects?
I do not know offhand, no.
Can we find out? Because they announced that they were approving those 2 for us.
We'll find out.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah?
Mary Higgins, Brighton Avenue. Why is Mauro Tucci, the former town manager, being paid $40,000 and $40,000 for a total of $80,000 as a consultant?
Why the municipal
Yeah, why?
council voted to approve that months ago?
Well, I want to know why.
Why?
Consultant for what?
Why they?
Why is he being given $40,000 and $40,000 as a consultant for what?
I don't believe he's being getting it. I believe that when.
Well, it's
when-
part of his a consultant package.
Right,
What
so
for?
when he, to consult,
Well, what is he consulting for?
he was working with it very closely with the new town manager that came in. If you
He
forgot,
was working closely with Mr.
do you want me to answer
Iacono?
your question, or you're gonna keep interrupting me?
Mr. Iacono comes with a wealth of experience.
Clearly
He
not
does
answering.
not need Mauro Tucci as a consultant.
There's a transition.
Oh, like specifically, what is he being paid
I
for?
tried to answer that question.
I mean,
You're not allowed.
is he logging in hours as a consultant? We have a right as the public to know how our tax money is being spent. Is he logging in?
I tried to answer your question, you're not gonna let me speak, so.
Okay, please answer.
So, when Mr. Iacono came in, for the first time in the history of Belleville, we hired an outside manager to be here full-time. At that time, Mr. Tucci was midway through labor contracts with our police and our fire unions, and he was midway through our budget. As he left, Mr. Iacono came in with a wealth of experience, with a wealth
Yeah, I said
of
that.
background knowledge, working in many different municipalities, but he was picking up the pieces midway through the manager leaving. Now, what I'll tell you is that if it was $40,000 or so, state law tells us that if we were to fire Mr. Tucci, we would have had to pay him 3 months. That 3 months is basically the equivalent of what he's being paid as a consultant to transition for 6 months, Mr. Iacono.
Okay, I'd just like to make one more comment. All right, you keep saying this is the first time for this, first time for that in the history of Belleville. What about the 4 council people who have been here for years and years and years? It's not the first time in the history of Belleville for what you're taking credit for.
What did I take credit for?
You're saying, for example, the property down there is being rehabilitated and, all these new things are coming up in Belleville, and it's due to your credit, the first time in the history in Belleville that the council has brought these things forth.
I said that twice today. I said that Walter Kitty's been empty for 30 or 40 years, and I said twice that this mayor and this council, for the first time in Belleville, is going to get that developed.
So you're saying that the 4 members who have been here have done nothing?
No, I'm saying
They've always been in support of that. It's just not you.
I never said me. I said this mayor and this council finally got it done. That's now the 4th time I said
Well,
that.
I hate to tell you, but 4 of them up there also worked in the past to get something done. So you know what, you're just riding in on their coattails.
It's still
Thank you.
empty. The land is still empty. Anybody else? Ma'am in the back?
Yes, good evening. Elizabeth Puebla, 11 Frederick Street. And also I have 4 concerns about the street.
I'm sorry, what street was that, ma'am?
11 Frederick Street. I have 4 concerns about my street. Now it's a busy street, looks like an avenue, when it's only one-way street, coming from Newark Avenue, close to Claramas Hospital, through to Franklin Street, through to McDonald's. Easy to locate the address where I am staying. My first concern it is because drivers trying to escape for the traffic light that's in Belmont Avenue found in another way on Frederick, the way to go at very speed, and many times we have serious complaints about the speed of the drivers.
So it's speeding.
And we are asking if it is possible to place some speed reducers. Also, we have school number 4 around, and many children are crossing through that street. This is one of the concerns. And another concern is it's the only one way. And we were victims of an accident. I don't know if the driver came drunk. I don't know if he came from the specific way, this only one way, or came that we saw before. There's some drivers from Franklin Street not identified that it's only one way through Franklin. It's coming in wrong way. And we are living only 4 or 3 houses far from the corner on Franklin. We were subject of the accident. We were, in December, we had an accident, serious accident. Some car came and hit our car. This is the second. The third is close to the corner. I don't know the appropriate word in English. I don't know if it is controlling water, pollution waters. Close.
Yeah, the storm drain.
Could be the name.
Storm drain. Storm
Could be
sewer.
the name, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it is forming a hole. And it's visible now. I don't know how deep is it, but we can appreciate it underground. It is whole. I don't want it up.
Is
Nobody.
that right in front of your house, ma'am?
It is close to my house.
Okay.
It's maybe.
It's on Frederick Street.
On the
Yes,
corner.
it's on
The corner, it's the
Fred-
corner of
on Fred.
Frederick and Franklin?
Yes, through Franklin. Franklin, no, Frederick through Franklin.
Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, understood.
And the last one is because the railroad subway through Newark, serving Bloomfield, Belleville in Newark, now the parking is very, very difficult for us because people who works in Newark or who's coming from in another towns, let the cars parking on around the streets of the subway, and it's not easy for us to find a parking during the day, sometimes during the weekend, plus some commercial, is very commercial street, Franklin, the street is commercial, that area, and I don't know if it is possible for us to have a permission parking for the residents who are living over there around the area of the railroad is now working for.
Okay. Thank you for your
Thank
concerns.
you.
I know that you had a couple of, about 4 of them. Well, 3 of them seem to be potentially police or traffic related. So our police chief is sitting here. That's the reason why we like to have our directors at these meetings, because we can't address those concerns directly. So I know our police chief is here. He's taking notes. Our township manager has some notes, and also our public works directors in the back. I think that whole would be something more in his purview, probably not the police department's purview. But if you want to stick around after the meeting and give them your contact information, that would probably be more beneficial.
I appreciate for
No
the
problem.
time,
Thank you.
for the attention, thank you.
Anybody else? Motion
Motion to
closed.
close?
Second.
With motion made and second, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Melham?
Yes.
So,
Resolutions.
you want me to move the consent? Motion to move the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion for the consent agenda. First time with no.
Hey, look at that.
Motion made, second to move to consent. Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
DePena?
Yes.
Graziano?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes,
Strumelberg?
I don't know, I couldn't hear that.
consent agenda.
Consent
It was the
agenda, Maureen.
consent agenda, Maureen.
Okay.
That's a yes?
Mayor Melham?
Yes. New business?
I just had a couple quick things, if possible. So, and I know, Mark, you've been doing a tremendous amount of outreach to the community, and one of the things we did in the past that I want to see done again, if we can do it within the next few months, is that the crime prevention events you used to do up at the senior center. I think based upon what I saw at High Street and people not locking their doors, we need to remind people, number one, the first line of defense are our residents. We need their help. We need to make sure they're locking their doors on their cars and everything else. And I want to congratulate the police department, because although it wasn't in the news, they apprehended the suspects within 24 hours. And the sad part about it is the news never says anything about that, only the negative, you know? So God bless you guys, we greatly appreciate it. I'm okay, sir.
You're good?
Yeah.
I believe Councilman Graziano now wants to see we start.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to mention, to let everybody know, we've been, since being elected and working close with the Board of Education, we would like the people to know and the citizens to know that the Belleville High School football field will be getting a new scoreboard shortly. It's on order. We're hoping to have it there, it's on order in October, I believe. It should be there. So there has been a lot of cooperation. Thank you to Town Manager Anthony to get this done, and Mr. Valano. So yes, it's on its way,
and it's a beautiful new.
Hopefully it's big enough, not like the
A little bit. And it's state-of-the-art. It carries at least five different sports. So we're not just to football, we're to soccer, we're to a couple other sports that may come about.
And football team's winning, right?
Football team's winning, and we're proud of that, because that's another thing that's been there for years and has not been addressed. And again, on behalf of the council, mayor and council, I'm very proud of that. We're proud of
The
that.
entire council.
Entire council.
Well,
So thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Power sources tonight.